Michael's hands were calloused from years of hard labor, the kind that left its mark on both the body and the soul. His garage was small and unassuming, tucked away in a quiet corner of town. Most days he worked long hours just to make ends meet, patching up old cars for neighbors who couldn't afford new ones. It wasn't much, but it was honest work, and Michael took pride in it. The rain had been relentless that evening, a torrential downpour that turned the streets into shallow rivers. Michael was just closing up for the night when he noticed a car parked awkwardly by the curb outside his shop. The headlights cut through the rain, and inside, a woman sat hunched over the steering wheel, clearly distressed. He could have ignored it, gone home to his modest one-room apartment, but something made him grab his umbrella and walk out into the storm. The woman's car was an older model, the kind that seemed to develop problems at the worst possible moments. After a brief inspection, Michael diagnosed the issue, a dead battery. He fetched his jumper cables, and within minutes, the car sputtered back to life. The woman thanked him profusely, though Michael waved it off with a tired smile. Just doing what I can, he thought as he watched her drive away into the night. By the time he got home, Michael was soaked to the bone. He peeled off his wet clothes, made himself a simple meal, and went to bed, thinking little of the encounter. For him, helping others was second nature, something that didn't warrant much thought or attention. The next morning, Michael's routine began as usual. He brewed a weak cup of coffee, shuffled through the pile of bills on his kitchen table, and prepared for another day at the garage. But as he stepped outside, he froze. Parked in front of his modest home was a sleek, gleaming sports car, the kind that looked like it belonged on the cover of a luxury magazine. Its bright red paint shone even under the overcast sky, and it stood in stark contrast to the rusted vehicles that lined his street. Michael approached cautiously, unsure if it was some kind of mistake. As he got closer, he noticed an envelope tucked under the windshield wiper. He pulled it out, his hands trembling slightly, and opened it. Inside was a handwritten note and a set of keys. The note was brief but to the point. It thanked him for his kindness the previous night, explaining that the car was a gift from someone who had more than enough to spare. It was a token of gratitude, a way to repay his selflessness. Michael stood there, the keys dangling from his fingers, utterly bewildered. He'd spent his whole life scraping by, never expecting anything in return for the help he offered. This was beyond anything he could have imagined. He looked around, half expecting someone to jump out and yell that it was a prank. But the street was empty except for the quiet hum of distant traffic. He didn't know what to do. Part of him wanted to reject the gift, to find the woman and insist he couldn't accept something so extravagant. But another part, the part that had endured years of hardship, whispered that maybe, just maybe, this was a moment he was allowed to accept something good. That day, Michael's life changed in ways he couldn't have foreseen. The car brought him attention, yes, but more than that, it brought him hope. People came to his garage, curious about the story behind the mechanic with the luxury car, and in doing so, they discovered a man with skill and integrity. Business picked up, and for the first time in years, Michael found himself able to breathe a little easier. He never forgot the woman or the kindness she showed him. He kept the note in his desk drawer, pulling it out on tough days to remind himself of that moment. It wasn't just about the car. It was about the message it carried, that sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness could lead to the most unexpected blessings. Michael's newfound success transformed his life in ways he had never imagined. The once empty garage was now filled with cars waiting for repairs, and his phone rang constantly with inquiries from new customers. Word had spread quickly about the humble mechanic who had been gifted a luxury sports car, and people were eager to meet the man behind the story. The work was overwhelming, but Michael welcomed it. For the first time, he could see a future that didn't involve constantly worrying about how to pay his bills. The red sports car became a symbol of his journey, parked prominently outside the garage. It was impossible to miss, its sleek lines and gleaming finish standing out in the otherwise modest neighborhood. Some customers asked for photos with the car, others simply marveled at its beauty. But to Michael, it was a reminder of a single rainy night and the woman whose gratitude had changed everything. Despite his rising fortunes, Michael remained grounded. He continued to offer discounted services to those in need, refusing to let success cloud the values that had guided him through years of hardship. The car might have brought attention, but it was his integrity and hard work that kept people coming back. He hired 2 additional mechanics to help with the workload, young men eager to learn from someone who had built his reputation from the ground up. One day, as Michael was working on a particularly stubborn engine, he noticed a familiar figure standing at the edge of the garage. The woman from the rainy night, the one whose car he had fixed, was there, her expression soft but unreadable. She had traded the old car for a more modest but reliable vehicle, and she seemed hesitant as she approached him. Michael wiped his hands on a rag, a mixture of curiosity and gratitude bubbling within him. The woman extended her hand, and in it was a small package wrapped in plain brown paper. Without a word, she placed it on the counter and gave him a nod before turning to leave. Michael called out to thank her, but she waved it off, disappearing into the crowd before he could say more. Intrigued, Michael unwrapped the package. Inside was a simple leather-bound notebook and a handwritten note. The note explained that the notebook was meant for him to document his journey, to record the lessons he had learned and the people he had helped. "Your kindness made a difference," the note read. "Pass it on." The gesture moved Michael deeply. That night, as he sat in his small but now comfortably furnished home, he opened the notebook and began to write. He detailed the events of that fateful rainy evening, the gift of the car, and how his life had changed since then. He wrote about the customers who had come to him with their stories, the young mechanics he was mentoring, and the hope that had slowly replaced the struggle in his heart. Over the weeks and months that followed, the notebook became a treasured companion. Michael filled its pages with reflections, gratitude, and plans for the future. Inspired by the woman's encouragement, he started a program at his garage offering free maintenance workshops for local teenagers, teaching them skills that could one day help them find steady work. It was his way of paying the kindness forward, of ensuring that the ripple effect of that rainy night continued to grow. The red sports car remained a part of his story, but it no longer defined him. What mattered most to Michael was the community he had built, the lives he had touched, and the sense of purpose that now guided his every decision. He often wondered if he would ever see the woman again, but even if he didn't, he knew her impact on his life was permanent. In time, Michael's garage became more than just a place for repairs. It became a symbol of resilience, kindness, and the unexpected ways life could change. The notebook on his desk served as a constant reminder of the power of gratitude and the importance of passing it on, one small act of kindness at a time. Michael's life continued to evolve, shaped by the unexpected opportunities and challenges that came with his growing success. His garage had become a cornerstone of the community, a place where people not only came to get their cars fixed but also to find encouragement and connection. The workshops he had started for local teenagers flourished, bringing in young people eager to learn practical skills and find a sense of purpose. Michael's reputation as a mentor grew, and with it came a deeper sense of fulfillment than he had ever known. But with success came new pressures. The demands of running a thriving business, mentoring young mechanics, and managing his expanding clientele began to take a toll. Michael found himself working longer hours, his once simple life now filled with responsibilities he couldn't ignore. He often thought about the woman who had gifted him the red sports car, wondering if she had foreseen the ripple effects of her kindness. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Michael sat in his office, staring at the leather-bound notebook that had become his confidant. The pages were nearly full, each one documenting his journey and the lives he had touched. Flipping through the entries, he felt a mixture of pride and exhaustion. The work he was doing mattered, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The answer came in the form of a letter. It arrived on a rainy morning, tucked neatly into his mailbox. The envelope was plain, the handwriting unfamiliar. Inside was a note brief and enigmatic. "You've inspired more people than you realize. Keep going. But don't forget to take care of yourself." Attached to the note was a small, weathered business card with an address and a time. Saturday, 3 p.m. Michael debated whether to follow the mysterious invitation. His cautious nature urged him to ignore it, but something about the note stirred his curiosity. On Saturday, he closed the garage early, leaving his team to handle the remaining work, and set out for the address. The location turned out to be a modest community center on the other side of town. As Michael stepped inside, he was greeted by the sound of voices and laughter. The main hall was filled with people of all ages, gathered around tables displaying various community projects. There were groups teaching crafts, others discussing local initiatives, and a corner dedicated to youth mentorship programs. Michael wandered through the bustling room, feeling a sense of familiarity. This was a community much like the one he had fostered in his garage, a place where people came together to support and uplift one another. As he moved between tables, a woman approached him. Her face was kind, her demeanor warm. She introduced herself as Sarah, the organizer of the event. "We've been following your story," she said, gesturing toward a table filled with photos and articles about his garage. Michael's heart swelled with surprise and gratitude, as he realized that his work had inspired far more people than he had ever imagined. Sarah explained that the event was part of a larger effort to connect individuals who were making a difference in their communities, and they had invited him to share his story. Humbled, Michael spent the afternoon talking to attendees, answering questions, and sharing the journey that had brought him there. He met others who had started similar initiatives, a retired teacher running free literacy classes, a young woman organizing food drives, and a local artist teaching children to express themselves through creativity. Each story resonated with him, reinforcing the belief that small acts of kindness could create powerful ripples. By the end of the event, Michael felt a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that his work at the garage was only the beginning. There was a greater opportunity to collaborate with others, to expand the impact of his efforts beyond his immediate community. Before leaving, Sarah handed him another card, this one with her contact information and a note. "Let's build something bigger." That evening, Michael returned to his garage, the red sports car still gleaming under the streetlights. He sat down with his notebook, reflecting on the day's events. The community center had reignited a spark within him, reminding him why he had started this journey in the first place. It wasn't just about fixing cars or mentoring a few young mechanics. It was about creating a network of support and inspiration, a movement driven by compassion and shared purpose. Michael began sketching out new ideas in the notebook. He envisioned partnerships with other community leaders, larger workshops, and programs that could reach more people. He wanted to create opportunities for those who, like him, had faced struggles and needed someone to believe in them. The possibilities felt endless, and for the first time in weeks, he felt a deep sense of excitement. As he closed the notebook and prepared for bed, Michael glanced at the red sports car through the window. It had brought him so much more than material success. It had connected him to a world of possibilities he hadn't known existed. The journey ahead would be challenging, but Michael was ready. He would honor the kindness that had changed his life by paying it forward, one act at a time. Michael's ambition to expand his efforts began to take shape almost immediately. He devoted evenings to planning and sketching out ideas, refining his vision for a network of support that extended beyond the walls of his garage. The challenges were daunting, but Michael's determination was steadfast. He started by reaching out to Sarah, the organizer from the community center, who was just as eager to collaborate. Their first step was organizing a larger workshop, one that would bring together people from different backgrounds to share skills and resources. With Sarah's connections and Michael's reputation, they secured a venue and spread the word. The response was overwhelming. People from all walks of life volunteered to contribute. A carpenter offered to teach woodworking, a chef proposed a cooking class, and local artists offered to run creative sessions for children. On the day of the workshop, the venue buzzed with activity. Michael walked through the crowd, his heart swelling with pride and gratitude. He saw teenagers hammering together small wooden projects, single parents learning how to prepare affordable meals, and children painting colorful murals. It was exactly what he had envisioned, a place where people came not just to learn but to connect and support one another. As the workshop concluded, Sarah pulled Michael aside, her eyes shining with excitement. "This is just the beginning," she said. "Together, They began to outline a plan for a series of workshops, each tailored to meet specific needs within the community. They decided to expand their reach by partnering with other organizations, pooling resources to maximize their impact. Michael's garage became the unofficial headquarters for their efforts. He continued running his business during the day, but evenings were dedicated to planning and organizing. His team of young mechanics stepped up, eager to contribute in any way they could. One of them, a talented but quiet teenager named Jonah, suggested offering basic car repair lessons as part of the workshops. The idea was an instant hit, and soon Michael found himself teaching not just local teens but also adults who wanted to save money by maintaining their own vehicles. The ripple effects of these efforts were profound. Jonah, inspired by Michael's mentorship, began taking on more responsibilities at the garage. He showed a natural aptitude for leadership, and Michael started grooming him to eventually manage the business. It was a step that allowed Michael to focus more on the broader initiatives without neglecting the garage that had been the foundation of his success. As the months went by, Michael's network grew. The workshops expanded to include financial literacy classes, mental health support groups, and even career counseling sessions. The red sports car remained parked outside the garage, a reminder of how far he had come and the act of kindness that had started it all. It became a symbol for the community, its sleek frame often surrounded by children who played near the garage while their parents attended workshops. Despite the growing demands on his time, Michael made sure to stay grounded. He continued writing in his leather-bound notebook, documenting the challenges and triumphs of his journey. The notebook had become more than a personal record. It was a testament to the power of community and the importance of paying it forward. One entry stood out among the rest. It was a reflection on the moments of doubt he had faced early on, when the weight of responsibility had felt almost too much to bear. "It's not about being perfect," he wrote. "It's about showing up, doing what you can, and trusting that even the smallest efforts can grow into something meaningful." That philosophy carried him through the harder days. There were times when plans didn't go as expected, when funding fell short, or when the sheer magnitude of need felt overwhelming. But every time Michael felt himself faltering, he thought about the people he had helped and the lives he had touched. He remembered the woman who had started it all, her quiet gratitude lighting the spark that had grown into a blazing fire. One evening, as Michael was locking up the garage, he noticed a familiar figure standing by the red sports car. It was the woman. She looked different now, more relaxed, as though a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She approached him with a warm smile and extended a small envelope. Inside was another note. "Thank you for keeping the spirit of kindness alive," it read. "Your work has reached farther than you know." Alongside the note was a check, a donation to support the growing community initiatives. Michael's eyes widened at the amount, but it wasn't the money that moved him. It was the affirmation that his efforts were making a difference, that the ripple effects of kindness were continuing to spread. With the donation, Michael and Sarah launched their most ambitious project yet, a permanent community center. The center would house all the workshops and programs under one roof, providing a safe and welcoming space for anyone in need. Construction began within months, and Michael was there every step of the way, lending his hands and expertise wherever he could. The grand opening of the community center was a celebration unlike any other. Hundreds of people gathered to witness the culmination of years of effort and dedication. Michael stood at the entrance, the red sports car parked prominently nearby, as he greeted each attendee with a smile. Speeches were made, stories were shared, and the air buzzed with hope and possibility. As the sun set on the opening day, Michael found himself alone in the main hall of the center. He looked around at the space that had once been a dream and was now a reality. The walls were adorned with photos of workshops, volunteers, and the many faces of the community that had come together to make it happen. In that moment, Michael felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, not just for the success, but for the journey that had led him here. He opened his notebook, now almost completely filled, and wrote his final entry. "Kindness is a seed. You never know where it will take root or how far it will grow. But if you nurture it, it can change the world." Michael closed the notebook, his heart full as he walked out into the night. The red sports car gleamed under the streetlights, a reminder of the power of small acts of generosity and the limitless potential they held. Michael knew the journey wasn't over, it never truly was. But for now, he allowed himself a moment to simply appreciate how far he had come. The community center became a beacon of hope and progress, a place where lives were transformed and connections were forged. Michael's vision had grown beyond anything he could have imagined, and every day, he witnessed the profound impact of the work he had set in motion. From the teenagers learning job skills to the families attending financial literacy sessions, the center was alive with the energy of people rebuilding their lives. Years passed, and Michael's reputation as a leader and mentor spread far beyond his town. People from neighboring cities came to visit the community center, eager to learn from its success. News outlets began to feature stories about Michael's journey, describing how a single act of kindness had blossomed into a movement that changed countless lives. The red sports car, now a cherished symbol of generosity, remained parked outside the center, a reminder of the humble beginnings that had led to this moment. As his responsibilities grew, Michael continued to focus on what mattered most: the people. He spent hours every day mentoring the next generation of leaders, ensuring they had the tools and support they needed to carry the work forward. Among them was Jonah, the once quiet teenager who had become a confident and capable manager of the garage. Jonah's leadership allowed Michael to dedicate more time to the center, knowing that his business was in good hands. One afternoon, as Michael walked through the bustling halls of the center, he was approached by a young woman holding a clipboard. She introduced herself as Lily, a journalist working on a documentary about community leaders who had made a significant impact. Lily had heard about Michael's story and wanted to include him in the project. At first, Michael hesitated. He had never sought the spotlight and preferred to let the work speak for itself. But after some thought, he agreed, realizing that sharing his story could inspire others to take action in their own communities. Over the next few weeks, Lily followed Michael as he went about his daily routines, capturing the heart of his work and the lives it had touched. The documentary premiered at a local theater, attended by hundreds of community members. Watching the film, Michael was struck by the depth of the stories shared. Not just his own, but those of the people whose lives had been transformed through the center. There was Jonah, who credited Michael with helping him find his purpose. There was a single mother who had learned financial skills that allowed her to start her own business. And there were the countless teenagers who now had careers and confidence thanks to the workshops. After the screening, Michael was invited on stage to speak. He stood before the crowd, his hands clasped tightly as he searched for the right words. "This isn't just my story," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "It's ours. Every person here has contributed to what we've built together. Kindness is a ripple, and each of you has been a part of making those ripples grow. I'm just grateful to have been a part of it." The audience erupted into applause, a standing ovation that lasted for what felt like minutes. As Michael stepped off the stage, he was surrounded by people thanking him, sharing their stories, and expressing how much the center had meant to them. It was overwhelming, but in the best possible way. Later that evening, Michael found a quiet moment to himself. He walked outside the theater and sat on a bench, the cool night air brushing against his face. The red sports car was parked nearby, its polished surface reflecting the glow of the streetlights. He thought back to that rainy night years ago, when he had helped a stranger without expecting anything in return. That single act had set off a chain of events that had changed his life and the lives of so many others. As he sat there, he pulled out his leather-bound notebook, now filled with years of memories and reflections. He opened to the final page and began to write. Kindness doesn't require wealth or power. It starts small with a single action and grows through the lives it touches. This journey has taught me that we all have the ability to create change, no matter where we begin. And as long as we keep showing up for one another, the ripples of kindness will never stop. Michael closed the notebook, a sense of peace washing over him. The road ahead was still uncertain, but he knew the foundation he had built would endure. The community center, the people, and the lessons he had learned would continue to thrive, carried forward by those who believed in the power of connection and compassion. Standing, Michael took one last look at the car before heading home. It had been a gift, not just of material value but of inspiration, a catalyst for everything that had followed. And now, as he walked into the night, he carried with him the knowledge that a single act of kindness could indeed change the world.